What if the secret to scaling your roofing company isn't another lead gen hack, but building a culture so strong it runs without you? Ronnie Lollar knows what it takes. He started knocking doors at 11 years old, built AVCO Roofing into a multi-location powerhouse, and co-founded Roof Warrior to help others do the same. But it wasn't always smooth. He's been through the hard stuff, friendships falling apart, team members leaving to start their own companies, culture setbacks, even questioning if it was all worth it. But instead of pulling back, Ronnie doubled down. In this episode, you'll learn how to create a leadership team that doesn't need you, the right way to let reps fail so they actually grow, and why you need to lose your savior complex if you ever want to scale. If you've ever felt stuck working in the business and not on it, Ronnie's got the playbook to change that. This one's packed with truth, heart, and systems that scale. Let's get into it with Ronnie Lollar of AVCO Roofing. Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Aline, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business. Got Ronnie Lollar, AVCO Roofing, and Roof Warrior. How are you today, bro?
Yeah, Jim, I'm doing great. I really appreciate that. Been a lot of fun, a good start to the year, and I've got a lot of fun things. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. You have been an integral part of the, I would say, of the AVCO team for some years now, and you can explain that to people. And then, you guys, you and Heath started Roof Warrior, and so. Yeah, introduce yourself to anyone that, to the audience, and if they haven't heard of you or don't know you.
Yeah, my name is Ronnie Lollar. I am the visionary at AVCO Roofing. I've been here for October, it'll be 10 years, which is kind of crazy. I've been in the industry for, this is year 18, which also sounds kind of nuts. But when I say that out loud, it's easy to kind of track because my oldest son, my wife was pregnant with our first kid whenever, so I can always know, right, he's 17, he's 16. This is, I think she was pregnant with him when I started. That makes it a little bit of it easier. But yeah, it's something that I've really enjoyed over the years is just the roofing space and what it offers. The opportunity, we were kind of talking about it earlier, that it allows for so much opportunity for so many different people. I've been in sales. I was in the fitness industry for a number of years as well. I was a personal trainer and fitness manager for a number of 24-hour fitnesses in Denver, Colorado, greater Denver area, for a number of years, and love doing that. I've been knocking doors since I was 11, which is kind of crazy. That's where a lot of my passion and decision to start Roof Warrior kind of came out of that. And so, Heath and I, we decided to create Roof Warrior because he and I, when we got into the industry, we got dropped off, probably like a lot of us on here that are listening right now. We got dropped off at the end of the driveway and said, okay, well, see if you can go talk to those people and convince them to let you get up on their roof. And then even better, see if you can sign a contract while you're at it, And so since that was our training, we decided there's got to be better options out there. And so he and I's heart is just kind of that of a coach. I really enjoy helping people. That's kind of part of who I am. It's just kind of what I enjoy doing. It's part of why I love what I get to do nowadays is that I'm not over any specific department at AVCO. I get to be the visionary. I get to be the culture setter. I get to be the person that, just checks in with people and get to hear about how things are going and, get to help troubleshoot different parts of what's going on. And so we decided to make Roof Warrior because we wanted to do something a little bit different. We wanted to, there's a lot of great coaches. There's a lot of great training programs and platforms that are out there. There's tons of them. I'm great friends with Jim Johnson. I'm actually part of it, one of his mastermind groups, and I love Jim, and he does great stuff. And we actually used him when we first started. He really helped expedite us. And so, but we wanted to do something a little bit different. We had the perspective of we're still operating a roofing company today, like in multiple different locations. And so we thought we might have a little bit something different to offer and to say with Roof Warrior. And so that's why we created it. And we've had that for the last, I guess, 3+ years. So we chose to partner with Sales Transformation Group, and Ryan Groth and his team has been a great partnership over there. And so they house our product inside of their platform and our partnership. So that's kind of a little bit of that. Got 3 awesome boys. I got a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old. Been married to my beautiful wife, Lindsay, for 18 years now. Been with her for 20, which is kind of crazy to say. And not only do I love my wife, but I actually like my wife. I enjoy her company. So very, very blessed and very grateful to have her. Been very supportive over the years of the craziness of what it was getting into roofing and, knocking doors and, 100% commission and all those different things, right?
It's a journey, and you definitely have to have the family on board, right? That's for sure. From our past conversations, what was it? How many industries you've knocked doors in? What, like 7 industries over the years?
Yeah. So 6 industries in 7 states. Yes.
6 industries in 7 states, and roofing became the one.
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey. So grew up, that's when we still rode our bikes all across, and parents told you to be home kind of by dark-ish, right? I kind of fell into the opportunity. I was riding my BMX bike, down some side road, and a guy pulled up in a wood panel station wagon, and these are crank windows for you younger folks that don't know what that is. Crank the window down. Is like, hey, you want to make some money? And I was like, as a parent now, I would have freaked out and I would have chased that guy out of the neighborhood, right? But back then I was like, well, yeah, sure, I'd love to make money. He's like, you can buy a new BMX bike or comic books or whatever, and he just told me about offering newspaper subscriptions. And selling them to adults. And I was like, well, how do you do that? He's like, well, you just knock on their door and, ask them if they want to buy a subscription. Okay. And I get paid for that. Yeah. Then he offered me some competitions and stuff like that. And the first competition at that time was like 1991, keep in mind. So it was a portable boombox CD player. So you remember like the ones, you had to put on your shoulder. And so I was like, well, how do I win one of those things? And, he said, well, you just got to sell more than anybody else in the district. And so my parents were like, sure, this seems like a good idea. We'll let you, go knock on a bunch of strangers' doors and offer newspaper subscriptions. So I did that. And I won the boombox CD player. And that was kind of the kickoff to my door knocking career over the years.
I had the same experience. So that was 1987 for me. I was knocking doors, delivering newspapers. My territory was phenomenal, Ronnie. I had an apartment complex.
Oh, wow.
So I had just a great audience, right? Like I didn't have far to go for all of it, but I had some long throws up to the second level going through. But that door-to-door experience as a kid is important, man. I'm gonna give you a little proud dad moment from myself. I have twin boys that are 11, and my son James likes to set up stands in front of the house and sell anything that he can. It's, from lemonade to origami to artwork to rocks, anything. Yeah. And, not long ago, living here in Minnesota, the weather is not so great to put stands in the front yard. There's just not as many people out and about.
Right.
I introduced him to the concept of door to door.
There you go.
And he went door to door and sold his drawings and made like, I don't know, he made like $40-50 walking the neighborhood, knocking doors. And he's getting that same experience, right? Get out there. It's an amazing thing. So from those that was your first kind of like, wow, there's people give me money for talking to them.
Right.
What's going on? This is crazy.
Yeah.
And then over the years through multiple industries and then landed in roofing.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about AVCO and the growth since you in the time that you've been there,
Right.
And some of the maybe touch on some of the key moments that really were transformative along the way.
Yeah, it's been just like anything else you could imagine in 10 years, kind of had its ups and downs, some difficulties, some very big wins, some really, really challenging things. And so, when Keith bought AVCO and I was working at another roofing company here, and he's like, hey, let's rebrand, let's relaunch this company that's been in our community for a number of years, but they had never really done much. They had a good reputation, but they weren't really noteworthy when it came to that. And really, he and I collectively, like, we've been friends now for 22 plus years, which is awesome. And we got, honestly, our relationship's better now than it's ever been. And I really appreciate him as a friend, even more so than a partner. And so, we came together and we really thought, like, what did we wish that all the different companies, because we had both worked at multiple roofing companies, of like, what would we want to have had when we first started? And a big part of that was, like, we wanted good culture. We wanted performance-based compensation. So, like, if the guys did really, really well and they went and generated their own book of business, like, we wanted to appropriately compensate you for that. And then to have freedom of schedule to where you could actually enjoy that money, right? Because, like, at some of my previous jobs, working door to door, I'd work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And, like, I was hitting a ceiling. And so we really wanted to make it something to where, the ceiling is a glass ceiling, and it's because you set that ceiling for yourself. It's not what we did. And so initially, a lot of it was, we just saw all of our friends that had been working hard for a number of years and that they just didn't have the right kind of opportunity. They didn't, the culture wasn't great. But they were hardworking people. They were good character. They were coachable. Some of those key things that even initially we kind of were like, well, we need to, not hire everybody that we know, because that's probably going to be a terrible experience. And so we brought on, initially, it was just like 7 of our buddies, if I'm being honest, was how it kind of started. And the great thing is that several of them still work for us to this day, which is really, really cool. And so I think that's a testament to who we are, but also to who they are, of course, too. And so that initial, first year, I think we did $5 million our first year, which the best they had ever done was like 1.7 in 8 years previous. And so we did like $5 million our first year. And so that was like, okay, we kind of have something here, and then we really had to kind of start thinking through, like, well, like, everybody else wants to tell everybody else about their experience working for this cool company and with a bunch of their friends and making really good money. And, whenever somebody's buying a new truck or buying a home, that you've been like, you've always been broke, man. Like, what in the world's going on? Like, how did this happen? Just like probably a lot of the people's stories that we have that are listening right now. And so they just kind of naturally started recruiting for us. And so then we were like, okay, well, we need to kind of maybe like come up with a plan here a little bit more. Maybe we should start like writing stuff down, like, instead of just kind of winging it here a little bit. And so then we had to start, building out the actual infrastructure of everything. And so over the years, just seeing those kind of smaller milestones, that really we wanted it to be a place that you wanted to come to work at, and that you would enjoy coming to work every day. Right. And then there were some milestones that were hard. Sorry, my automatic light just went out over here, so give me a second. And there were some milestones that were really hard because some of those people, over time, they didn't want to be apart any longer, and they were friends. And so we had to sever some of those relationships, and some of them were really, really messy. And, like, I'm not going to lie and say that it's all those people's fault or they chose to leave. Like, yeah, I'm a person too. Like, I'm human. And, I actually, I wish for those people to be successful. I don't wish ill of any of them. Like, I don't want them to, have a rough life because they might have, caused some hardship for us, in leaving or anything like that. So we've had some hard times for sure. We took a pretty big dip a few years back. But the really cool thing, Jim, has been seeing the transformation in the company in the last, last 3 or 4 years, and seeing the culture. Like, I am so proud. Like, I was literally on a date with my wife on Tuesday, And she was like, have you really just kind of taken a moment and paused to see like what you have done with the team? Of course, like this is not like a me thing, but you've set the culture the way that it is. And like, because when I come to work, I am like actually very excited to come to work. I'm so excited to come to work. And I always say it like this, like life is too short to not enjoy the people you work with and to hate what you do. Like it's too short. We get one of these. So why not find a place where you fit in? Why not, make that place for you to create that for somebody else? And so, it's been a beautiful thing to see the people that were able to stick it out with us, to see the change. And now like I can honestly say I've never been more proud and more excited for the opportunity that we're giving so many other people. And so, yeah, now, we're coming up on our 10 years at the end of October. So I'm really, really, really very thankful for the folks that honestly, like even in their maybe leaving, and I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot about myself. I learned that instead of, like if we're loving people well, if we're coaching people well, if we're training people well, like you're going to have people spin off from you. It's just going to happen. And initially I got really hurt, if I'm being 100% honest, and it hurt because some of them were close friends and it really hurt. And I kind of pulled in a little bit and I got kind of hardened a little bit, I guess you could say. And I was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna put myself out there. I'm not gonna allow myself to get hurt like that again. I don't want to feel that feeling again. And I was talking to somebody and they said, well, are you hurting them or are you hurting really yourself? Because you're not really being true to who God's created you to be if you go down this path, right? And I hadn't really thought about it in that because I was very raw at that time. And I really had to think through, you're right. And then instead of pulling back, I jumped in both feet head first, right into the deep end. And it was if this is going to cause potential what if scenarios or pain in the future, then so be it. But I'm going to be who I'm supposed to be, and I'm going to love people, and I'm going to care deeply. And I'm going to continue to pour into people because that's who I am. That's who I was made to be. And I don't want to shrink back from that. So if other things come from that, that's out of my control. I can only do what I can do. And so for me, that's, being who I am and who God's called me to be, and to hopefully, be a safe container for other folks as well.
Yeah, I can see the challenge in that. And I've heard it from a lot of contractors who have had, sales reps and team members leave to start their own thing is what I'm hearing. And but my goodness, if you look over time, if you 10, 15 years from now, if you watch those seeds that were planted at your company, and then they grew in the different perspective on it, right?
Right.
If you get to look at it, we're starting to experience that from roofer marketers, from our digital marketing agency, and some of our team members that were with us have gone to other places, and I'm like, oh, there's some of us over there, and there's some of us over there, and there's some of us over there, and it's it can be a really cool thing. It doesn't feel good up front, I'm sure, but
yeah.
I had a question for you because you talked about culture, and creating a good culture. Culture's one of those big words,
right?
With big meaning. What is it mean to you? What does good culture mean to you?
Yeah. So when I really think about culture, I think culture feels like the blood of the company to me. It's like the lifeblood. It's the source, if you will. If that's bad, everything else is going to be bad. You got to kind of start there. And if you don't set the culture as the owner, as the leader, as the group of leadership, somebody is going to set the culture in your company. So if you are removed, if you are not involved, if you're not engaged, somebody else is going to set the culture for you. Okay. And you probably won't like what it looks like, more than likely. And so for me, really good culture looks like being a growth-minded company, and not just from a professional perspective, right? People think that they can compartmentalize professional and personal for forever. And I just don't believe, like, I hope that I'm the same person at work that I am at home. I don't try to be a different person. You know, I don't have a preacher's voice at work, and then, you know, at home it sounds different, right? With how I engage with my family. And I think for us, it's, you know, people are coming from all different walks of life. People have all kinds of years of experience, all kinds of baggage, if you will. I have baggage. You got baggage. We've all got baggage. And to be okay that sometimes they're also going to mess up, right? Like, and that's okay. One of our core values is that we learn, we improve, and we refuse to quit, not fail. Failure is actually a part of the learning process. I want my people to fail. I give them the room to fail, and I verbalize that to them. And if they mess up, I don't want to be the first one to reach in and like have a savior complex, which I have had before, and be like, well, let me fix that. Because then I just undermined everything that they did. And so we really try to foster a group collective of like, we're here for one another, right? Like our vision is like to make AVCO the best place to work. Like that's literally our vision statement. Not our mission statement. Our vision statement is for us to make AVCO the best place to work. And we're not for everybody. Like if you don't like, being encouraged, challenged, held accountable, you're probably going to kind of hate it here, to be honest. But those people that like are open to that, like they really enjoy it. Like I had just yesterday, I had 3 people, as I moved my furniture around, we did breath work together on my carpet in my office, and people are like, you would have asked me if I would have ever done this 3 months ago, I would have, or 3 years ago, I would have told you were crazy. Right. But, different, just little things. And we want to see people thrive. Like I love when I hear they bought their first home. We're putting our kids in private school. We paid off debt. We got to go on a family vacation for the first time. Like that is way more satisfying than any amount of money. Like you can only buy so much stuff before you're like, okay, like what else can I buy? I'll buy another truck, another vehicle, another car, another house. Sure. Or seeing all this other cool stuff happen to so many other people, man, that gets me so excited. So yeah, I think culture is the lifeblood. Healthy culture is also being willing to know and have people be okay as the leader for people to call you out on your stuff. Just because I happen to be the boss doesn't mean that I'm above reproach. Like I want to be able to welcome that. In our leadership team meetings, like, I'm just one of the other people. I might be the visionary, like when it comes to the organizational chart, but they're like, we're peers. And if they see that I've been doing something wrong, like call me out on my BS, like I want to be open towards those kind of things. And so I think, being open, being transparent, being vulnerable, being authentic, I think that all of those things really help lend well to a healthy culture. For a while, I kind of thought that we needed to not be 100% forthright with certain information and withhold and not talk about certain things. And it just led to where people thought you were being dishonest, and you were like, well, I don't want to share this with you. And honestly, it's just like, okay, here's behind the curtain, like whatever. I don't really even care. Like you can look behind the curtain. It's fine. And so it's been great. Honestly, it's kind of a relief and kind of like a weight off the shoulders to be like, okay, cool. Yeah, you can ask whatever questions you want. I mean, I might answer every question, but you can ask some questions. But yeah, so that's a long answer to your short question.
That's all right. That's a great answer. What does it really look like to build a team you can trust and step back from the day-to-day?
Yeah, that's been maybe one of my favorite things to see them step up. and to really start to believe in themselves. There was plenty of years where I wore like multiple hats. Like, I was the COO for a while. I was a sales manager for a while. I was, out in the field knocking and selling for quite a long time. I mean, I've had to run payroll before. I've had to, get in QuickBooks and cut checks, kind of like a lot of us who had to wear multiple different hats at different parts of the business. And seeing to where you allow those people, right? Well, you kind of alluded to it earlier in that core value that I mentioned: learn, improve, and refuse to quit. Not to fail, like we said, but giving them the space and really seeing something. And I feel like this is kind of like maybe one of my superpowers is that I see something in somebody that they might not even recognize that they have in themselves, and then learning to how to ask the right questions to help kind of unlock that mechanism that's kind of in there to get them to almost get unstuck in their own brain sometimes, to be like, oh, no, I couldn't do that, or that's too big, or that's too scary, or I've never done that before, or whatever it might be that's keeping them back. And then just asking good questions to help them kind of like relieve that weight, relieve that pressure, to start believing in themselves. Because I can speak to that, and which I should, and which we should, and kind of helping draw that out of them. But they've got to eventually start to believe that for themselves. It doesn't come fast. Relationship equals time spent. And that's what you have to do. There is no shortcut here. There's no quick, easy button when it's like, well, I don't want to be over this department, or anything, and I want to be able to back out and, go do whatever I want to do. Like, okay, you might be able to do that in 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. But if you're in that and you're in the, the thick of it right now, you can't just pull the chute and eject. Like, your company will fall apart. You can't do that. You've got to do practical things right now. And so just seeing the different folks, I'm just smiling because I'm like literally like recalling stories and in my mind of my leadership team specifically, and seeing them step into those roles in the last 3, 4, 5 years or whatever it has been, or even for some of them even like the last 6 months. But it was an awesome thing to see them execute that job, execute that role, and then say, okay, I see that, and then offer them that opportunity if they would want it, right? Like, you got to make sure that they actually want that opportunity. You don't want to just drop it on their lap and be like, well, here you go. You're the top salesperson, so you should be the sales manager. Probably not. Probably shouldn't do that. If I'm being honest, that usually doesn't bode very well for your top guy being your sales manager. But making sure that they have that desire there, and then start to help build that inside of them, and then just kind of step back, right? Like, one of the things that really, really helped me, I kind of always liked to be the guy and have all the answers, but I realized that I couldn't be the guy and have all the answers and have the quality of home life that I really wanted. I couldn't have both. And so something had to give. And so one of the things from like a practical standpoint that really helped me to help them also was when they would call, didn't matter what day, what time it was, I used to answer every single time. Somebody called me for work, didn't matter if it was date night, didn't matter if my kids were talking to me, didn't matter. I just answered the phone. It could be 9 p.m. on a Sunday night and I'm answering the phone. You can only imagine how great that went over at home. Very understanding wife. She was still very, very understanding for all the years that I did do that. And babe, I'm sorry. Hopefully you've forgiven me over this time. But just stopped answering when they would call. And then I would just text back 45 minutes later. Hey, just check and see if you're okay, if you need me to call you back. I mean, Jim, you could probably guess like what ended up transpired. Nope, we got it figured out. The collaboration of them working together with somebody else in a different department, them really believing in themselves, and them taking that next step. It was a beautiful thing to where now, I don't actually oversee any of the operations on a day-to-day basis. Like the team is doing it.
It's pretty amazing when you give them the opportunity. You talked about the savior complex. How can an owner identify that in themselves and then break that cycle with their team. Before we carry on with the episode, let's give a shout out to one of our sponsors. I talk to contractors every day that feel stuck. Not because they're not working hard, but because they're missing the structure to growth without chaos. Or their culture's falling apart because their team's unclear, unaligned, or just burned out. And when change hits, they're reacting instead of leading because time and priorities aren't under their control. Day 41 Thrive helps to fix that with proven strategies for growth, culture, and leadership that actually work. Ready to thrive beyond the storm? Visit the link in the description or visit the Roofing Success Podcast website on the sponsors page to start your journey today. You talked about the savior complex. How can an owner identify that in themselves and then break that cycle with their team? And you kind of mentioned one thing already, and that's what made me think about it.
Yeah. It kind of, a lot of us that have that savior complex, probably a lot of them are salespeople. If I'm being honest, like we think that we're the best and like we're the greatest salespeople of all time. And you kind of have to have a chip on your shoulder, especially if you're a door-to-door sales guy. And especially if you're a DDD guy in, one of the big markets, Minnesota, Dallas, Denver, like you kind of have to have a little bit of a swagger about you to not get your teeth kicked in, especially if you do it for 10 plus years. Right. And so I think that sometimes it comes down to allowing other people first off to speak into your life and to call out those things, right? To realize and being open to that. Because if you're not willing to receive that, because I can think of some guys that I've had conversations with and they just weren't ready for that conversation, because I would be like, well, what about this? And asking them questions, not accusing, but asking questions and inviting to be part of that conversation and hearing their response. I'm like, okay, there's no sense in me continuing this conversation. We're not going to be able to get there right now. And that's okay. I don't need to push. There's no sense in doing that. But allowing people to speak into your life is important. Being coachable, no matter who you are, being a lifelong learner. Like, it doesn't matter if you're 80 years old, you have 1 million degrees, you own multiple companies, you're a billionaire. Warren Buffett talks about all the time. Like, he learns every single day. He continues to learn. So why can't we continue to learn? And so being those that having the humility, the self-awareness, but also allowing to be coached is an important part, to allow people to speak into your life in regards to those things that maybe you might not see at the time. But also, if from your own perspective, if you don't have that, and right now you're listening and you're thinking like, well, I don't have a savior complex. Well, okay, well, maybe let's pause and let that sink in and maybe let that reflect for a minute, and then ask yourself some questions. Whenever something goes wrong, do I feel like I have to be the one that fixes it? That's a great start. The last time that something broke, production, sales, whatever department, were you the person that was like, fine, just get out of the way, I'll just do it myself? It'd be easier if I just did it myself. You're not even getting it. If you're saying those kind of things, you probably have a savior complex, right? But then let's think about it from this context. How do you think that makes that person feel that you gave that authority, and then all of a sudden you're rushing in to save them? Are you saving them? Are you sure? I don't think that they're wanting to be saved in that moment. I don't think so. So maybe even if you're now thinking about one of those times that you've done that recently in the last, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe go ask that person and ask them, and hopefully they can be honest with you, because some people might not feel like they can be honest with you. But ask them, like, whenever I came and that happened, what did you actually feel in that moment when I jumped in and I actually took over and took the reins back? How did that make you actually feel? Not what did you think, what did you feel? What did you feel in your body? And then just pause. And whatever they say, welcome that. Because there's going to be some semblance of truth, because if their perception is going to be there, and you can either receive that and then realize like, oof, is that how other people perceive me? Maybe. the great thing is when you allow room for people to do that, like I know that my leadership team would like run through a brick wall for me, right? But it's also because I acknowledge who they are, not just like what they can do for us, right? But I acknowledge who they are as people, and I regularly thank them for what they're doing, right? Like when's the last time that we took that extra moment to just kind of pause because of how hectic it is or what's going on, right? Like we're in a big hiring crunch, or, like our Dallas location, we just got a big hailstorm, like go, 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 go. All of those things are all valid. But people that are operating our business are literally the most important part of the business. That's number one. We can make more profit. We can make more revenue. We can create new processes. But can we make new people when we burn those bridges? Kind of hard to come back from those things.
And I think another thing that to add to what you're saying is, I think you'll find out who they are a little bit when you ask them that question, because when we hire in the beginning of our businesses, I feel like we hire like someone to just help us with something, right? But they rely on us for what to do and how to do it. But as your business grows, or as you get certain, the A player, the 10X, or the whatever you want to call that person, the leadership type of roles in your company, they own that role. So they should feel a certain way that you jumped in. And that may give you some indication into is that the right person for a leadership style role? Like if they're like, yeah, my goodness, I'm so glad that you jumped in. Every time you jump in, just please jump in every time. That's going to give you some indication, right? Like of who that person is at their core, and maybe how far that they can go in a leadership role with you. I wanted to change a little bit, but still around team. What are the most common mistakes you see companies make in building their sales teams?
So they see the opportunity, or they see a person's numbers or their charisma, and they allow character and culture fit to not be acknowledged first and foremost. That it's like, oh, well, this guy's he's a $2 million producer leaving this other company and he wants to come work for us. But are we having core value interviews? Are we having culture fit interviews? Just because you see numbers doesn't mean that that's going to be a good decision for the long haul. And so generally that's like the first one that's usually pretty like, okay, or they sold cars, or they came from some other sales organization, sales industry, or whatever it is, but they were not looking at their character first and foremost, because character is going to come out at some point in time. There is going to be friction in that business relationship, and how that person is and in their character is how they're going to respond in those difficult moments, and what they're going to do inside of your company in those moments matters. And so I would say core value and culture fit, like for some reason people don't do like one of our whole interview process, like a whole section of our multi-tier interview process that we have for salespeople. The first or second interview part is literally core value and culture fit. And it's over an hour long, and it's only around core value and culture fit. Don't bypass that. That is such an important part, because people are either an add or they're a detractor in your culture. There is no neutral. They're adding to your culture or they're subtracting from your culture. That's it. And so that would be the primary. The second I would say is the lack of learning how to get what they have up here, or somebody else in their company has the it factor, right? Like, and we were kind of initially bad at the beginning of this, like, well, if their figure out factor is not very high, then, they're just not going to be cut out for this job. No, it's because I didn't know how to put what I had up here onto paper or onto video and actually properly trained somebody. So that's not those people's fault. That's my fault. That's my lack of leadership is what that is. And so you might be sitting there and being like, yeah, I'm, my retention rate's 22%. Okay, well, if your retention rate's below 50% at all in any market, retail, insurance, whatever part of the region of the country you're in, that should be a red flag to or at least like a caution flag to be like, okay, what in our processes are not correct here, right? Is it we're not interviewing properly? Our ads aren't really properly phrased. So we're like, our net's too big. Our onboarding's bad. Our 2 weeks of initial training's bad. Our continued education's bad. Like, what is it? Where's the disconnect? Because it's got to be somewhere if you're dropping that many people. And so from that perspective of not knowing how to get what's in their brain and into a form that other people can understand, you can't just have everybody ride around with Johnny and be like, well, just ride around with Johnny and Johnny's got it figured out. Like, that's not a training method. That's not a training modality. You don't have a training system. Johnny can't be your training system. Like, that's not a great idea. And so just the hope and prayer of like, well, let's see if we just throw it against the wall and see if it sticks mentality. Like, we got to get past that, especially if you want to grow a successful sales organization that's going to be able to continue to churn and generate revenue in any type of market. You've got to have those kind of things in place.
Then how do you find those reps? What is how do you find good people for your sales team?
So our first and foremost, and has been this way for the whole 10 years, is personal networks. We love to offer incentives to all the people in our company. Like, hey, if we bring in somebody and then they start selling and after their first roof, I will give you some money for helping recruit that person. Because guess what? You're paying somebody else to recruit, or you're creating ad spend or whatever. Like, why not incentivize our people? Tap into their personal networks, right? So that's kind of number one. Some of the other ones that have been helpful for us, military job fairs. Just saying. Because what are military guys really good at? They're really good at following instructions. You tell them what to do. Okay. If that's what the mission is, okay, I can execute that. So those have been helpful for us as well. College job fairs. Like, we got to kind of think outside the box here. We can't just be like, well, I'm just going to put an ad on ZipRecruiter. I'm going to put something on Indeed, or, like if you're like a white collar professional sales organization and you're like, I'll have stuff on LinkedIn. Like, we got to get creative, right? We got to think a little bit outside the box. If you're not, then you're doing the exact same thing everybody else is doing in your market. You're getting, like we personally don't hire guys from other companies, like, just because I'd rather have a blank canvas to work with to start. It's a whole lot easier for somebody to learn something the first time than to unlearn all of those things. Not saying that they're all bad behaviors, but then to relearn. It's like, having a blank canvas and then having to paint over the existing portrait that was painted by the other company, and then be like, I think I got it all covered. And then it starts to bleed through and you're like, crap, like, why is it bleeding through? And it's like, no. Like, we got to put some more code on top of that. So, being comfortable with not just hiring other reps. Like, that's not a hiring strategy, is hiring other reps from other companies and offering them a couple more points to leave that company. That's not a hiring strategy.
That is not a hiring strategy. That now, on the other side of that, you have to be able to paint that canvas. So you have to have a training process in place that you can bring someone through and help to make them successful in that role. How would you go about, how would a roofing contractor go about setting up a really solid training process that's replicatable so that they don't have to rely on just paying a little more commission to the other rep across town?
Yeah. So I think there's a few different ways you can go about it, right? You can shorten the time by like I said, initially, like, we hired Jim Johnson. And that shortened a number of years off of the learning curve because we didn't know what we didn't know at the time, right? So paying a coach, paying a training program to allow that to happen, because more than likely you might not also have, sorry, that light again, you might not have the time to be able to do that, right? And so with that, that light usually off this time. There we go. Sorry about that. That will shorten that learning curve. Even if you think it's like an investment, well, how much is your time worth, and how many more years do you want to put into that? So there's that side. But say that you want to create your own. Okay. First step is you got to start documenting somewhere. So the easiest step here, I believe, is to think through, if we're talking about salespeople here specifically, think through your biggest issue in your sales process. Well, maybe I should take a step back. First off, do you have a sales process that's written down? If you don't have a sales process that's written down, you need to start there. Okay. So if you don't have that and you're like, sales process, what does that even mean? Like just step by step, from, new lead intake till the job closes out, it needs to be documented. Every single step, every small task that has to be done by somebody in that sales process, it needs to be documented. So you have your full sales process. So after you have that, then it is out of all of these things here, what is the thing that is causing us the most heartburn in our company right now? Are you not getting enough leads? Okay, let's build out our process of how do we generate new leads. Let's get this part built out. So just start where the most egregious thing, the thing that's keeping you up at night, the thing that's like causing you, stress in your life. Look at that and then build that SOP just to start that part of the training modality, right? There's great things now like Loom. You can get on Loom and just shoot a video, just start talking. And Loom's AI will then create and realize, oh, this is like a checklist that we're creating. And then it'll create the checklist for you. And it's even free for some of that stuff. But start somewhere. A lot of people, it's kind of that, paralysis by analysis. They're like, well, then I'm going to have to get it built out. Just do the first thing, right? Just do the first thing. And like I said, the easiest is maybe not the easiest, but the one is whatever's like the thing that's most on fire in your sales process, build that part out. And then everything from there, start to involve the other people on the sales team. Okay, could you do me a favor? Johnny, would you mind go ahead and document like what you do on a day in and day out basis as a salesperson, and just invite them to be part of the process. You don't even have to do it all by yourself. Let them help. Ask for their help. A lot of the times they get really excited. They're like, oh, wow, like I can help like with documenting this stuff. Yeah, I'm super excited. I'd be more than happy to have your feedback and your input.
I'll go a step further now because we're in the I'm deep down the AI rabbit hole.
Yep.
And so my goodness, you could ask ChatGPT to interview you about it and develop the SOP and it will do it.
Yeah.
You can give all your input. It will continue to ask you questions until it has enough data and it'll create this stuff for you. So there's really no reason to not have this documented anymore. You can't, it's very hard to say I don't have the time anymore.
Yeah, no,
I did it.
And that's like a answer, yeah. Right?
It is. I had ChatGPT interview me on a podcast last fall.
That's cool.
And it interviewed me.
Wow.
Like it actually interviewed me. And it was pretty crazy to, so if you haven't listened to that one, anyone listening, go back and listen to the ChatGPT one. It was crazy. And so you have the ChatGPT app on your phone you can have a conversation with, and you can make it conversational. If you're not if you're not someone that wants to sit down and type, right? Like you can actually have a voice conversation with it now. And so lots of easy things to do. In terms of the build out of those systems are easier than they ever have been.
Right.
We'll just put it that way. They are easier than they have ever been. Now it's having the right messaging, the right conversations. And when we were talking, I think it was last week, we talked about an emotionally intelligent sales process? Like, what does that actually look like? I know you're enjoying the episode, but let's give a shout out to another one of our sponsors. As a roofing marketing agency owner and coach, I've seen it all. Great marketing wasted because no one follows up fast enough. That's why I built Power Up Agents, not just a receptionist. Our AI handles the entire customer journey, from answering the first call to booking the job to post-job surveys and reviews. 24/7, inbound, outbound, even multilingual. If you want leads followed up instantly and customers nurtured automatically, visit the link in the description or visit the sponsors page on the Roofing Success Podcast website. Your full AI team is ready. You talked about an emotionally intelligent sales process. Like, what does that actually look like?
Right. So early on in my sales career, I was very much a transactional salesperson. It's, here's my pitch, here's my presentation. I need you to sign on the dotted line. Obviously, it was a lot smoother sounding than that. But that was it. There was no building of rapport. There was no building value. There was, I wasn't getting as many referrals as I was kind of hoping. Because when I would ask for referrals, they weren't really interested because there was no connection there. And so, there's a study done at Stanford where it spoke about that people trusted leaders that had a higher EQ, so their emotional intelligence score, than their IQ by like twice as much. And folks that actually made 36% higher than their counterparts were because they were emotionally intelligent, not because their IQ was better. And so I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, this person's the smartest person in the room, but we've met that person, the smartest person in the room, but they're a hammer, right? And you're like, oh gosh, like I can only be around this person for so long. And everybody's like, whenever they come into the room, they're kind of like almost a little bit scared to see like what's going to happen, right? Like we probably have all been in those rooms. And so instead, learning how to, and this is something that I love to read and listen to podcasts about the brain and neuroplasticity and all those kind of things that we can actually like rewire our brain. Like I love that stuff. And so learning how to become an emotionally intelligent person, like we can do that. It's taking a pause in that, part of that sales process, if you will, to learn how to ask good questions, right? And so we do a lot more of a consultative sales approach is kind of how I phrase it. It's not us pitching the customer. It's us asking good questions. I love the app Zero because I love to see what's the percentage of time that our sales guys are speaking versus the percentage of time that they're listening, right? Like those are some really key statistics where it reads your tonality, your total words per minute. I'm a fast talker, as we've kind of learned in this conversation today. But also just learning how to read the room, right? To read that situation with that customer, right? Like before they were just kind of like leaning in and then you said something and all of a sudden you see that, that guy lean back. Now he's pulling away from you. He's crossed his arms. He's not any longer open. An emotionally intelligent person should pick up on that, pause, and then try to politely dive into what's going on. What happened? We had a little bit of a disconnect. Maybe I miscommunicated and I want to make sure that we're on the same page, And so that emotionally intelligent part of the process, I don't think it can be really overstated, to be honest. And I don't really hear a ton of people talking about that. They talk a lot about, the sales guy got to be charismatic and he's got to be a super extrovert and, he needs to be good looking and like ripped and, and if they're a girl, they need to be super attractive and, be this tall. Like, no, they actually don't. That just means that we have this preconceived idea that this is what a salesperson looks like. But maybe it's because we've actually just kind of done a piss poor job on training other people that can fit into this larger bucket that we call sales. and their personality and who they are can actually be very vast. But it's because we are only isolating this, person's, how gregarious this guy is, and like he's going to be a good salesperson. But maybe he doesn't actually like pay attention to detail, and he doesn't follow the sales process, and he's like, a dog chasing a squirrel, and he like can't move the job along in the process. You're going to be really frustrated with that overly charismatic guy, but somebody else that, kind of ticked all the boxes in all the different areas that might not have been overly, extroverted. Maybe they're actually a better person for your sales organization. So our sales organization, I actually really enjoy seeing the diversity that we have between all of our different folks. It's really pretty cool.
That's awesome. What are some of the top characteristics of your best salespeople?
Yeah. So I prefer people that are disciplined over people that are motivated. Motivation it wanes. Like this morning when I got up for working out, you know what I didn't feel? I didn't feel motivated because I didn't sleep well last night. And so I wasn't motivated to work out. But you know what I did? I worked out because I chose discipline, because I know in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be better. So we really try to look for people that like have some form of, or some semblance of discipline in their life. That's really important. People that are coachable. You could be all the best salesperson on the face of the planet, but if you're like, I got it, man. Like, it's fine. And like, I don't care who you are. If you're not coachable, I'm not here for it. Like, I'm just gonna let you do your thing, but we're not interested in any capacity. Those are the really big ones. Of course, like high character. I want to ask some, in our interview process, we really ask a lot of situational based questions, because I want them to recall a memory that's going to pull on that to let me know if they fit this characteristic like you're talking about. So I want to ask certain questions. Those are some of the other things. Like they still do need to be kind of money motivated to a degree. Money does not need to be their top motivator, but it still needs to be top 3. If it's not, and they're like, yeah, I'm cool making like 40K this year, it's like, well, yeah, that's not going to really work for us. It's like they do need to be money motivated. Some of the other things are, that they really do enjoy helping other people. That like our group is very much a team atmosphere. Somebody else is struggling, and maybe one of the guys is having a hard time knocking doors, and he's just not landing inspections. A lot of the veterans, or other people, will see that, and they'll be like, "Hey, man, like why don't we go knock together this afternoon?" I don't even have to be like, "Hey, Johnny, I need you to take out Timmy to go do this." Like, they do it on their own. And so making sure that people like want to be bought into that team atmosphere is really a crucial part for us as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great advice. What, it sounds like you'll agree with me on this, but I believe that your business journey is a journey of personal development, right? Like I can hear it in you.
Yeah.
Like, and so what are kind of some of the biggest mindset shifts that helped you go from, a door knocker to a visionary leader?
Yeah, I 100% do agree with you. I always say that professional problems are actually personal problems, just wearing a fancy sport coat, right? Like, that's like the reality of it. It's just a little bit better looking attire. As far as, there was some really important breakthrough that I had to have in my personal life to get to the next level, right? Whenever it was me just out knocking doors, it was, I basically burnt the ships, right? It was like, there is no going back to where I just left from. Not because I left bad, but because I knew what that life looked like, and I was not interested in continuing my future years, right? So the fear of my life staying the same was greater than the unknown of taking that leap to that next opportunity. And so for me, it was really realizing there is no plan B. Like, I have to figure this part out. And I was, I played a bunch of sports in high school. I love competition. But I had also had to realize like there was this part of me that didn't like failing. Like I actually like didn't like failing. So like there were certain things I wouldn't do because if I didn't know if I would be successful at it, I didn't want to try it. And so I was okay with like not doing something because of the fear of failure, right? And because of that fear of failure really was like a fear of man too. Like, well, what are people going to see? What are they going to think about me if I, can't do X, Y, and Z? And so I had to be okay with failing on a daily basis when you're knocking doors, right? Like that's the reality of it. Like you're going to have your teeth kicked in several times in a day. And so that was a part of me that had to be okay with like to get to this next level in my life, that I can see the future. I can see the opportunity, that I have to be willing to let that part of me die, right? Like we can't hold on to who we are currently. What got us here isn't going to get us there, right? And so having those little milestone moments of, okay, this has been okay. I'm not really like a past. I don't really like looking over my shoulder. I don't like looking. I'm thankful. I'm very blessed, and I'm excited. But I want to be in the present moment, and then I want to be in the future. I want to enjoy where I'm at, but I also want to be goal oriented and vision focused. And so, the next stage was, different things like I want to buy a home for our family, and so like I gotta do something. I didn't want to pay PMI, and so I need 20% down and all those kind of things. And there was different milestones where I had to become a different person. I had to become the next version. And what really kind of helped me there was seeing other people, maybe not in the same industry, maybe not even, but I had seen that like they had different a different life than I had currently, and they were maybe a little bit farther ahead. And so I had really good mentors throughout different parts of my life. That's something that's really, really pivotal, I believe, is I'm always being mentored, and I always am mentoring somebody else, including people like outside of the industry. Like I've got several guys that live locally that I meet with that are, young 20-year-old guys that, that I want to invest my time in because, somebody else did the same, and I want to be a blessing to other folks. And so, there's going to be different things that is going to come up that you're going to be faced with. You're going to have to make a decision, and you're going to have to choose what version of yourself you want to become. And so, there was plenty of other opportunities, like from a financial perspective, but I didn't want to trade my values for money. And so like there was things that I also had to make the decision of, I'm not willing to sell my character for any amount of money. That's just not who I am. I had mentioned that I have 3 wonderful boys and a wife. And at the end of the day, like when I go home, I want to be able to look them in the eyes and know that I did right by them out in the world that day. And that I feel good about saying, well, your dad, your husband, your friend did right today. So those kind of things are really, really important.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate your time today. This has been a great conversation. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.